We're finishing the Vimilikirti Sutra today and on Thursday. Next week, which is Tuesday, is July 2nd, Erica Wild will be here in person. She went to an eco-dharma retreat with Lama Rod Owen. Some of you may know him. He's an African-American gay lama who trying to look for the right word. He says what he says. He speaks directly out of his life. And so Erica very much enjoyed the retreat and is going to come and talk to all of us about it, which is wonderful. It was the Rocky Mountain Eco Dharma Center. July 4th, we won't be here. I was thinking a good koan for July 4th is what is freedom? I mean, please have fun, but seriously, what is it? And then we will begin for a few weeks having Sangha way-seeking mind talks, which we do every year. So please come support your Sangha mates. And it's always wonderful because they're usually scared. And we get to sit here and help breathe in and out to steady everybody. And it turns out that whatever their story is, we can always find something inside ourselves that just feels like, oh, I know that's my story too, a little different. Some of us will then go off to Tassajara Sangha week, and while some of us are there, Constance and Marilyn are going to be here and will be helping unfold Suzuki Roshi's Zen Mind Beginner's Month, which we'll do more of when all of us return back together again. And maybe we'll even have a little reporting from Tassajara. Well, you can do some reporting if you're here, and we'll do some reporting from there. And there never is any here or there anyway, so we'll just find out. We were all practicing together, but we'll find out how to describe that. So I thought I would start with the basketball went away. It was here and then it left. Where did it go? What was it? I don't know if any of you on screen could hear it. I read this recently. Dukkha, the Sanskrit word that means suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Du means constricted, and kam, dukkha, means sky consciousness in Sanskrit. So when the sky of consciousness is constricted, we experience suffering. If you're resisting that basketball and it's bouncing against the edges of your brain or who you think you are, you get to experience some form of suffering. The Sanskrit word for ease or bliss is sukha. Su means expansive. So when the sky of consciousness, it's one of the ways that emptiness or boundlessness is described. When the sky of consciousness is spacious and expansive, we experience joy and wholeness. And there's the sound of a bouncing ball, and there's human beings doing something that someplace along the way we named basketball. And what is that? So the Vimilikirti Sutra, early Mahayana Sutra. I had it's funny I'm going to say I had the pleasure, because it did feel that way, and a privilege of being in Vimilikirti's sick room. last night. I guess it was last night. Time was time and space. Good practice friends, Mariana and Stan Stefanik. Stan was diagnosed with cancer in March, and the hospice is now giving him probably days. In fact, I was thinking Mariana kept, it was like she kept trying to count it on her fingers. It's like, I don't think she knew what I mean, I don't know what she was doing, but it's like the brain is like, how can you cognize something like this? Like March, April, May, June. Anyway, she was very clear, and Stan is not conscious, though completely conscious of the room. That it was important to do a ritual before Stan died, so that everybody who loved him could gather together, who was possible, that it was possible. And it was like everybody coming together in Vimilikirti's sick room. It was really, I thought, why do we not do this? I mean, so there's the feeling of, well, one, this is holy. This is, how could this be? This is horrible. And simultaneously, Stan's sick room put in chairs. They actually gave chairs. Vimilikirti's sick room, they took away all the chairs. And it turned out that everybody was sitting on a lion's throne, because the more we were there, and the more we chanted, and the more the people sang, and the more the people began to speak their love, the edges of the room began to just disappear. And everybody in the room began to get bigger and fuller and filled with light. And there was nothing but love. How can that be? We got to know the goddess a little bit this past weekend at our sitting. A goddess who shows up in Vimilikirti's sick room, and I don't doubt that she was there actually in Stan's sick room. Actually, here's a story. Maybe the goddess did this. Stan was a Unitarian Universalist minister. He preached for 40 years. Big meaning. And he wants to be married in his robes, in his ministerial robes. So Mariana had them in the room. I've never seen them before. And they're so beautiful. That Zen is really boring. All our robes like that. I mean, they're kind of rose colored, and they got black velvet and this cowl, and he wants to be buried in it. And so it felt really appropriate that while we were all there and invoking him and invoking love, that we laid the robes on him. He stepped into his vestments. You could feel it. You could feel the robes were alive. And the minute he came in contact with them, he was Stan, but he was also something else that included all of it. And the whole room began to sing in a certain kind of way. The goddess says there are 8 rare things that happen in Vimilikirti's room. One is it's always illuminated with golden light. The room was illuminated with golden light, and everyone in the room began to shine from the inside with golden light. The room is always filled with music that is the non-sentient singing. Everything in the room began to sing. You could hear it. And then people started bursting into song and teaching each other song. It was really kind of wonderful. The third is people are no longer troubled by the kinds of things that tend to trouble us. They exist, but we have a different relationship to them. Stan is dying. and there was no dying. They're both true and neither's true. The fourth is that all who come together in this room, it's a gathering that never ends in a way that's always growing and opening and changing in relation to circumstances, as everyone in the room is changing in relationship to circumstance. And you could feel it. So everybody came in the room really quiet, sitting on the little old chairs, and everybody was looking at the floor. By the end, everybody was sharing poetry and speaking their heart, and nobody was afraid anymore. Something happened, same room and completely different. 5, this room has access to the Pure Land. We see the world through the eyes of the Pure Land, through the eyes of wholeness and completion. There was nothing in that moment but beauty. That included that there was also dying happening. Same world, perception, big and vast and spacious. And 6, there is an inexhaustible storehouse for the benefit of all, that the more you practice, the more we were in the room. Everything we needed was in that room. Something happened that was more than the sum of the parts. And I would say on a material level, it's cellular. I really, there's a little Buddhism. I mean, you've heard me say this before, this is my imagination. I mean, who knows what's really true? There's just little Buddhas in every cell, and they can start feeling when people are practicing, and when there's something happening, they start to hum, and the little cells start to hum with the cosmos, and everything's humming, which is the way it always is. But most of the time, we're just kind of walking around in more constricted states. And that's it too, which brings us to chapter that Joan Sutherland calls Lotuses in the Mud. If you plant seeds in the sky, they'll never grow, what Manjushri says. Don't get too pure. So the dialogue, we're coming back to Vimilikirti, but now returns to Vimilikirti and Manjushri, who is the god of wisdom, picking up some of the points that the goddess just made with Shariputra that I was just espousing. Manjushri asks how a bodhisattva enters the way of Buddhahood, and Vimilikirti says that it is exactly in following paths that are, according to various translations, wrong or unacceptable. How do you do the path to Buddhahood? This is radical. This is very disturbing. You follow, depending on the translation, paths that are wrong or unacceptable, or simply not the way that you find the Buddha path, the way you think you're going to do it. A very radical sutra. Remember, this is on Tibet, this is right on the edge of Theravada, very pure practice, monastic practice, precept practice in the purest of ways. And now we're being told the Mahayana way is saying, no, the way of the Bodhisattva includes everything, everything. Don't leave anything out. It's not the way you think it is. And Vimilikirti then chants one of the sutra's semi-hypnotic litanies, this one of bad places you might find in yourself. Ooh. Hell, the land of hungry ghosts, among demons or private Buddhas, and perhaps even surprisingly nirvana, and of the afflictive emotions you might feel. Anguish, hatred, anxiety, stupidity, arrogance, greed, aversion, anger, stinginess, irascibility, laziness, distractedness, deceitfulness, haughtiness, and dissipation. These are actually names. This is a very, very pure sutra. That's not so pure. And of changing conditions, poverty, illness, and disability, humble birth, weakness, physical weakness and ugliness, inarticulateness, old age, and also wealth and abundance and sexual partners. That wouldn't be. You might even discover that you're a heretic. So many not the ways. And yet, if you can disidentify with them in the ways we just spoke of, is spaciousness. Remember, dukkha is constricted. And the sky of consciousness is constricted. And sukha means when the sky of consciousness is spacious and expansive. Just awesome. Just breathing in and out. We cannot hold ourselves as superior and therefore separate from any of this. We can nurture a peaceful and generous heart, even in the depths of hell, even in the vast emptiness of nirvana. It's probably easy to see why the peaceful and generous heart is an improvement on hell, but it's also more precious than nirvana because it's how we can extend the healing to others. In other words, don't try to get out of this and think there's something wrong here. Like, I want to be in Stan's sick room. I want to be there with Stan, and I want to be with Vimilikirti, and I want to be with everybody in the room. And whatever it is that each person is bearing and caring for each one of us, it's like, where else do we think we want to be? Because it's not what we think it is anyway. Peaceful and generous heart is how we extend the healing without exhausting it within ourselves. It is a sustainable state resting on the whole earth. Ease, bliss, right here. Not teetering atop a scaffolding of reaction and fear. Disidentified but not separate. This is the state of calm, attending, and wholehearted accompanying that Vimilikirti proposes for bodhisattvas in the process of giving birth to themselves in the midst of a birth-death world. So then Vimilikirti, we know they keep asking questions. Like, okay, well, that was nice, but now I got some more questions. Vimilikirti, Shariputra was very practical. So keep telling me more, keep telling me more. I really want to understand this. My husband's a lot that way. Just thought. So some of us take things on faith, and some of us have to keep asking these kinds of questions, and one or the other is not better or worse. Find out what your way is. Vimilikirti, Manjushri asks, what are the seeds of the Tathagata, of the Buddha inside of us? What are the sources of this growing awakening inside of all of us? Well, if you've been paying attention, this is not going to surprise you. I thought I would just read from Thich Nhat Hanh's commentary, just to. The body. We all have a body. The body is the seed. Craving, grasping, attachment, hatred, and delusion are the seeds. It's the way we know them and the way we wake up to them is in the body. The 4 upside down views are the seeds. In some, the 62 wrong views, all the teachings of what's right and wrong and upside and downside and inside, and all the afflictions are the seeds of Buddha. Like, oh, thank you, Buddha. The second is, you want to know? Yeah.
Yeah.
The second is the sources of this growing awakening inside of us. You might be able to guess it. Is ignorance and partiality of choosing some things over the other. All of the confusions and obstacles and challenges of being human beings and our lives together are it. This is the lotus in the mud. This is why Stan's sick room was so beautiful. I mean, it would have been beautiful if it was something else too, but part of it was just so poignantly, presently, birth, death. The room is profoundly alive. So here's what John Sutherland has to say. Quoting Manjushri. It's just like the lotuses, which don't grow on dry upland plains. They grow in the muck and mire of low-lying marshes. It's only within the mud of the afflictions that sentient beings can give rise to the elements that make up a Buddha. And then he says, if you try to plant seeds in the sky, they never grow. Rich earth, down where it's dark. There's all these little microbes. Only when you plant them in well-manured soil can they sprout and flourish. And John Sutherland says, a lotus can be seen simultaneously above and below the water. Below, it's a closed bud floating in the timeless dark. Above, it's an open flower waving on its stalk in the sun. In the middle is a wide expanse of water and leaves and a scattering of petals. The lotus of our awakening is all of that at once. Manjushri says, if you don't dive into the vast ocean of existence, you'll never find the precious jewel of awakening. Just keep diving in, taking the leap moment after moment. Don't know why. Something can happen in the dark that can't in the light of the God realm. Something about simplicity and stillness, vastness and depth, grounded in a world house of lamps and oil and illumination. In the velvet dark room, there's so much less we're compelled to know and do, so much more space for listening. Oh, Stan's robe was velvet. It was dark, rich. Oh, we laid him in the ground in a certain kind of way with his robe. And he was completely in the in-between world. We bless the marvelous poverty of life by doing what we can only do here, feeling our way along the walls that give texture and shape to the deep nights of our lives. This is what endarkenment means. And then I thought, here's a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, because we did the ceremony with one bright pearl. We put the pearls on the altar, and I thought I would just read you this because the pearls are in the Vimilikirti Sutra. If we do not go into the great ocean, we shall not find the priceless pearls. If we do not go into the ocean of the afflictions, we shall not give rise to the understanding of all things. That's where it is. And of course, enormous compassion, because we human beings want to know what's going on. We want everything to be okay. We want to be in control. And we don't want to suffer, and we don't want the people around us to suffer. Stan would periodically, his face would show, I mean, he was so clearly present in the room, even though he was in a coma. But someone would say something and his face would show expression. And sometimes it looked really uncomfortable in what he was experiencing. And I thought and said later to Mariana, well, of course he's grieving. I mean, of course, if you're a human being, you're going to have feelings about all of this. I think sometimes, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what dying will be like. But the one thing I think I do know, or think I know, is that what will be hard is to leave everyone I love. So of course, in a room full of love, what you'd be feeling is just the grief of how much, I mean, to love is to grieve. It's like you could see it in his face. It's like he would relax into love, and then there's grief of, oh, everything I've known is changing. What a thing it is to be a human being. So I'll finish with this part of from Joan Sutherland. Vimilikirti continues Manjushri's theme, reiterating that only someone immersed in the world can fully awaken. She calls Prajika Buddhas and Shravaka Buddhas private Buddhas, Buddhas that are doing it just for themselves. A bodhisattva is someone who understands you're doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for the whole world because there is no separation. If you turn away from your relationships, responsibilities, affiliations, dreams, and challenges, and everything else that makes up a human life, you wound yourself in fundamental ways. Then you can no longer benefit from the teachings. You won't even have the desire to. You become impervious to influence and change, and without yearning, there can be no aspiration. Or I would say without love, there can be no grief. There can be no sadness, no tenderness, no vulnerability. It's all you can't pick one, you can't pick one or the other. In other words, you lose the capacity for bodhicitta. The heart that cares and aspires can shut down and connections wither, and without them, the impulse to seek awakening for the benefit of others, knowing that your life is in service to goodness and awakening for everyone, dies. In Vimilikirti's room, we see that whatever pain we're experiencing is a little shard of the world's suffering that's been given into our care. If you can attend to it and maybe heal it, we're doing that not just for ourselves, but for the world. Can you imagine being able to say about the thing that hurts you most, if I take care of this, no one else will have to? Can you imagine being able to say about the thing that hurts you most, or the thing that's hurting you in this moment? If I take care of this, no one else will have to. Instead of your pain isolating you, turning you into a private Buddha, it connects you with others and reminds you of our shared community. Our shared, actually it says shared humanity, but shared community. The grand thing about being in Vimilikirti's room is knowing that everyone in the room is doing the same thing, sharing the demanding and also work of the world's awakening, sending their energy in your direction as you send yours in theirs. I think that's one of the most precious things about being alive, is those moments where you know that. I mean, I know this, and it's like, I know this, but when you actually experience it and you know it, and you know the depth and mutuality of love and interconnection, and that we can help each other, that we create and co-create that moment for each other and for the entire world, and that as we live it and awaken to it, it helps the whole world live it. And that in faith and in Sangha, when one of us is in a place of suffering and isolation, we can breathe together and we can help each other remember. But that's the gift of taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And that when we're doing that for the whole world. But I forget, and you forget. And I don't, the people I love something. I just don't know. But I also know, maybe we also know, that by being willing to plunge in over and over and over again, there is something that opens. And our body and our cells and mind, which is small mind, does remember. Suzuki Roshi calls it big mind. Big heart mind. Always, it's always here. That's what practice is helping each other remember. You know Tonglen? You know the practice of Tonglen?
What is it again?
Tonglen.
I've heard of it and I can't remember.
It's a Tibetan practice called sending and receiving. The basic experience of it is that when you are experiencing suffering, or you see suffering, quote, out there. The first thing is that you ground, and the instruction is that you flash on something vast and boundless. So you could flash on the ocean, or on boundless sky, or big infinite heart mind. And then you begin, but it's you, but it's not really you, but it never is really you. Begin to breathe in whatever the suffering is. The traditional instruction is to experience it as dark and hot and heavy. You could breathe in your own anger, suffering. You might be experiencing in someone in the grocery store line, or someone you love or care about. You breathe it in, you breathe it into this vastness. And then you, because you experience it as you, breathe out the antidote of what's needed, which might be love or compassion or forgiveness or kindness. And the teaching is that if you think you're doing this for someone else, and at a certain point you start feeling overwhelmed by it, you just always come back and do it for yourself. The willingness to breathe in overwhelm, or the willingness to breathe in, I can't do this, this is too much. And then you breathe out forgiveness, vulnerability, or tenderness. No matter what's here. There's light. There's the miracle of sound as music. There's enough, vast and expansive. We are all deeply here together, helping each other. Ways we can't even imagine. So why don't we turn to each other? We have just a few minutes. Jen Sutherland, here's her explanation of Tonglen practice. Other people feel this too. Whatever you're feeling, other people feel this too. So jump off from there. What does other people feel this too? What is that? Turn up for you. How does that turn in your practice or anything else you want to talk about? You're gonna have, I don't know,